Twilight Zone. And he was right, but why was he right? It's an anthology series, so every episode is self-contained. There's a whole storyline that starts and ends in the same episode. Sci-fi, it dips into horror, and it taps into the fears of the time. Both Twilight Zone and Black Mirror did that really well. In Twilight Zone, there's this one episode. It's called "The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street," and it's about this whole community that are worried about the other person being an alien. There's aliens in the area, and they're worried that maybe their neighbor is one of them. Now, this was happening at the same time as the witch hunts and McCarthyism and possible communists in the area. So it was tapping into that fear of maybe my neighbor's going to turn me in. This isn't uncommon, though, to tap into the fear of the times. So in Frankenstein, the classic story of a man using new technology to develop this creature that eventually causes all sorts of trouble and destroys a bunch of stuff, it was happening at the same time as the Industrial Revolution. And people were dealing with those same fears, right? The fear of this new tech running amok. Godzilla, it's a story about this big creature that's coming and decimating whole cities with no regard for the people that are there. This came out 11 years after the atom bomb was dropped in Japan. Where that film is, they say it was tapping in psychologically to that fear. Zombies, we have them, they're just all over the place. I feel like in the last 10 years it's been a real focus, right? Zombies aren't all over the place. But there's a lot of talk that zombies are, what are they? They're these outside creatures that are coming and taking our independence, they're taking our agency, and they're coming from the outside, which many think is tapping into our fear of globalization and others coming for us for our jobs and what have you, or from around the world. Now, I think Black Mirror fits really well into that sci-fi horror genre because it taps into the general unease that we might have with all this new technology, the new stuff that's coming out every day. But what's different than those is that there are more real-life examples right now that are happening in the world that we're not going to see Godzilla on the street, we're not going to see Frankenstein on the street, maybe zombies, as you just heard. We are going to, but with Black Mirror, you start seeing some real examples that just kind of crop up in the world that makes it really creepy. So there's an episode called Metalhead, and it's about these autonomous killer dog bots, right? And just recently, Boston Dynamics put this out.
It can open doors.
After you. They're working together on our nightmares. And when Wired recently tweeted about it, and the top comment I love is, that Black Mirror episode ruined Boston Dynamics. So some others in this movie, the episode Nosedive. It's about a world in which everyone rates one another, like Yelp, through social media, and then based on your rating, you have access to certain parts of society, let it be getting into a flight or many other things. And in China, this is happening. It's called the social credit system that they want to fully implement by 2020. And it uses the same methodology, the same thoughts as that episode. And 2 weeks ago, Mr. Colbert had something to say.
Here's the thing. It's really easy to get docked points in this system.
China's version factors in everything from jaywalking to smoking on trains to buying too many video games.
Jaywalking, smoking, too many video games? That is not good news for the coolest kid in 7th grade.
So in the episode Crocodile, there is an autonomous pizza truck that is kind of a crucial part of the plot. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
And what happened at CES this past year, but Pizza Hut put out their own prototype with Toyota.
Of course.
And very excited. And what I love, again, another tweet about it, was Black Mirror. We know how this goes. So there was also, in doing the research for this, I realized there's all this tech I didn't know was out there that I thought was actually pretty cool. Archangel, there's this episode where they put a chip inside the heads of the children here. You can have it put in. And among other things, it blocks out anything that stresses the kids out. So if there are cortisol spikes, it'll blur it out through their eyes. So I'm a new parent, and when I found out that this was real, I'm like, I'd be a horrible dad if I didn't look into this. So I convinced my wife for us to get into the Archangel beta program. And we found, though, once we put it in our son Henry's head, that it was blocking out things we think are important. Like he stopped seeing vegetables. This was Chores, he wasn't having.
What happened to the frog that parked illegally?
Those are three pillars, very important pillars of childhood. So we removed it, we took it out immediately. That's 100% real. So Black Mirror at its best raises real questions that you consider once it's done, or maybe an hour later, or maybe the rest of your life you think about it. And for example, in the episode Entire History Review, everyone's able to record everything they see and then re-review it later objectively. And I believe there's a certain amount of psychological safety that comes from being able to misremember things or forget things or block things out. So there would be a lot of questions raised about our identity if that was true. In this episode, deal with some nightmares.
This is the worst.
So that episode, among other things, it might raise questions about how do we feel about online vigilante justice, like Anonymous, going and being the judge, jury, and executioner for people, whether they've done something right or wrong. What about due process and fair trial? It raises questions. In the episode BRB, a woman's lover dies, and they're able to recreate him from his online presence. Now, maybe that would bring us a different sense of what it means to have, a sense of permanence, sense of death, a sense of finality, if you know you can have a chatbot. And more importantly, I think some of my friends that only respond snarkily online or send memes or GIFs are gonna have a weird afterlife. And I'm thinking here, an afterlife, hey, I miss you, friend. They would just send me gifts that one of those friends is right here. I see. I know that secret.
Every day.
So I think the one episode that is the least likely to come true, raises the least amount of questions, is the Waldo moment. So this episode, for those who don't know, is about a foul-mouthed, brightly colored bully who has his own TV show. He ends up getting into politics from his straight talk. He rises to fame on this populist uprising.
Come true.
Everyone, 100 quid to anyone who can lock a shoe.
He incites violence in his followers. He is at one point potentially co-opted by foreign agents to help him get elected. And finally, all he really wants is to get his get his brand and his logo all over the world. So unlikely. This seems far-fetched. Actually, that one checks out. Really colored boy, he got his own TV show, gets into politics, he's got his popular trade.
So if you see somebody getting ready to throw a tomato, knock the crap out of them, would you? Seriously. Okay? Just knock the hell. I promise you, I will pay for the legal fees, I promise. I promise.
Incites violence and says that he will pay for it, foreign agents getting involved, and really just wants worldwide branding. I think that one actually is the most accurate. Isn't that creepy? There are like a bunch more examples. So we are currently living in the Waldo moment in my...
Fake news.
Okay, maybe not. Maybe we're not. So tonight, I've been thinking since our last IxDA event, I want to do something with Black Mirror, and I kicked around a few ideas, and originally I thought maybe we could do something like Neil deGrasse Tyson, where he would take movies and he would break them down as an astrophysicist. So he'd take Interstellar and he'd say, this is possible, this is not, and here's why. So maybe we could take, as designers, all these beautiful interfaces and all the tech that's on the show, and we could say, this works, this obeys Fitts' law, this is a great signifier and an affordance, and kind of go through the design talk. But that could get boring. That could get boring after a while. I would be bored of my own voice after a bit. So instead, I approached some of my very talented and thoughtful and accomplished colleagues, and I said, I'm going to give you 10 to 15 minutes, and I want you to take one aspect of the show and just expand upon it from your point of view. It can be anything. And they have produced some really incredible things. So for our first speaker, I'm going to set him up here. In the episode USS Callister, there's this world created like the holodeck in Star Trek, where everyone is there. It's a form of AI or simulation, I don't know exactly what it is, but you can't tell the difference between them in this video game and in real life. So our first speaker, who, if you've come to any of these events, you will recognize, is a member of our experience strategy team here in Chicago, He's a good friend and a wonderful thinker. Please welcome to the stage Mr. Jeff Nile.